So the following clip is from my podcast Dictate the Tempo. Linked below is the playlist here on YouTube, as well as the link to the Spotify playlist. Now, if you do enjoy it, make sure you do go and check out more of the podcast. But let's head over to myself, Colin, and Ryan for a clip discussing tactics from our most recent podcast. Going on to the next topic, Colin, you need a fullback.
Yeah.
Tell us what you want to discuss. This is the final topic of this podcast, Colin. Tell me what you want to discuss and get it off your chest.
So we were talking. I forget how it popped up. We were having a chat in Discord amongst some other players and what they were doing. And one of the things I've noticed as I've been trying to put together my team for League 2 is how just dreadfully difficult it is to find fullbacks that fit the system that I want to play. Because on some level, like, you can find players, that's not as big I guess I wouldn't say that's as big an issue, but it's finding the right players without adjusting my system. Because now I'm at a point where, like, my system is a bit my system, and I want to pull players in to fit my system as opposed to morphing it around them. And I've really just been struggling to get out and find the right, find players. I'm struggling to find fullbacks that aren't just trash to begin with. But then finding the ones I'm looking for is seemingly even harder these days. So I was curious, from a methodology approach, what you guys have been doing, since it's been so long since we've had this kind of a conversation, of how do you scout and identify players for your teams and your systems?
Well,
especially hard to find ones.
Firstly, I love the Tony Pulis argument of this is my system, screw you guys. I'm finding people for my system who want to play in this system, and if you can't play in this system, I refuse to change for anyone.
Damn right.
I guess I have seen a large problem with fullbacks in terms of many fullbacks in Football Manager don't know how to dribble. Many fullbacks don't have a first touch. Many fullbacks can't pass a ball. I have seen multiple fullbacks who are quite good defensively but can't get forward, so more of a no-nonsense fullback than a wing-back style. For me, I've always gone along the line of, okay, what type of club am I? So if I am let's say we're discussing a 20 league team. If my team is expected 10th or below, I will always say, okay, if I'm playing a back four, I want my fullbacks firstly to be defenders. So if in the first transfer window I can't find wing-backs, I will more than happily stick a proper centre-back at left-back, as long as he has physical attributes of stamina, pace, acceleration, and balance and agility, because I want them to be able to turn. They're always defending on that half turn. They're always looking to chase the winger. So I want to be able to make sure they are physically capable. Then technically, I'm just looking for fullbacks who can head, tackle, and mark. If I am a team who is expected to come 9th or above, then quite a lot of the time at the minute, Colin, especially in FN24, a lot of my fullbacks will naturally probably be wingers. And they might only have 8 or 9 for tackling, 8 or 9 for heading, 8 or 9 for marking. But they are super quick, super good with dribbling, crossing, passing. And I'm playing with inverted wingers in front of them, so then they can overlap, get forward. And then I'm playing with a anchor or ball in midfield in the middle who makes up that third defender, for example, when we have the ball. Because fullbacks, I do think, are an issue in FN24. I don't know how you found it, Ryan, with your super club.
My super club. You got to bear in mind that I did start with a back four, and then I've sort of started using back three formations purely because of this fullback issue that you do get as you go further into saves. I do find that you can get more players that can be wing backs, or you can retrain people at least to be wing backs, because you can just train your wingers to be wing backs more. Fullback is definitely an issue on this version of Football Manager, and I think probably going back a few other Football Managers as well, you just can't seem to get good ones that link up with what you would think as a modern fullback that can dribble, that can pass, that can actually cross a ball. It never happens.
What would you class as a modern? What player would you say is a modern fullback?
Modern.
To paint the picture of what you are saying in terms of it's a struggle to find them fullbacks.
A modern type of fullback for, I mean, if we're looking at the Pep type of modern fullback, Pep plays those inverted ones where if you look at what he's done with, I'm probably going to murder his name, Josko, is it Gvardiol?
Gvardiol, yeah.
Yeah, Gvardiol. What I mean, he
but
on previous Football Managers was a centre back. He's turned him into a left back that sometimes comes inside, sometimes you find him way out wide.
Here's a question for you then. And Colin, I guess we will put it to you because it's your team you're trying to improve. Would you consider playing a left-footed centre-back at left-back, for example, as a inverted full-back on defend, okay? This is an actual thing which I used this idea with Egerson for a couple of seasons in terms of if we had a few injuries in positions, and it did work. And I had a central midfielder stroke wide man, so someone who can play on the wing but is more of a central midfielder, good on the ball, technically very gifted. I would play right back as a attacking wing back. So when we had the ball, he was basically in midfield. Or you could also play as an inverted fullback, so then he's going into that defensive midfield area. And when you have the ball, you are then playing with the back three of your left back and the two centre backs. And your right back is then either becoming a winger, if he's a wing back on attack, which I was using at the time because my wide man was cutting inside. Or you could go inverted full back on attack, which would then mean they would basically become a central midfielder when you have the ball. Is that something you feel you could use, or is it something you feel your team would maybe not implement correctly and it could maybe even cost you points?
Oh, I definitely think the latter is true. We're not. I don't got a field full of geniuses playing. Well, so I guess I'm not sure is probably the best answer I can give you. So tactically, the way I've set up, so it's a 4-4-2. What I'm looking for out of the back, so my fullbacks are more traditional attacking fullbacks, and I do look for the overlap. So what I'm trying to create is really fast transitions that enable my wide midfielders to exploit the channel and create quick overloads in the opposition final third. So I guess where I get myself into a bind is I'm looking for technically skilled fullbacks on the ball that can cross well, can move the ball. So the dribbling is definitely a significant problem. But I guess almost repurposed sort of wide playmakers becomes viable, although that's another kind of niche guy to find. The only other part that gets a little problematic, and typically where I'm finding it is to what you said, is you can either find really good defensive guys that don't know what to do with the ball other than get it out of there, or really gifted offensive players who have no idea how to play defense. And my system sort of really, really demands that the fullback is a good two-way player, is really a good two-way player, and that's where I'm falling down. And then, kind of the question I'm wrangling with a little bit right now is, can the system work if I have to overvalue one or the other? And I've done some sideline experiments, and unfortunately, overvaluing offense gets me in trouble. So, kind of the maybe that I kind of that I gave you as an answer is, when we get the ball and we start to transition into the attack, right, everything moves forward fairly quickly. So wingers move, my wide midfielders move up into the channels. I've got, my top two, so my deep line forward kind of moves back to the top of the box area. My primary striker is, harassing the goalkeeper, trying to split the center backs to get in for a goal scoring opportunity, and the fullbacks are pushing up for crossing, kind of leaving me, and then I've got a deep line playmaker sitting in that central midfield, and the ball winning midfield. So I've ebbed back and forth, and I'm still, I guess I'm decided as a second question or second thought is ball winning midfielder or box to box is my other midfielder. If I do the ball winning midfielder, he drops back into kind of a back three with the center backs. If I put him as box to box, I end up a bit exposed with just a pair of center backs back there, but it's offensively very proficient because I have a ton of overload and a ton of pressure coming into the opposition box. But if I get caught, it can get me into a lot of trouble.
I think it definitely comes down to how quickly you are transitioning and getting that ball forward, because another option you can be looking at if your fullbacks don't have that ability going forward is to just play a flat four of no-nonsense players so your fullbacks don't go forward. But then your issue is if your wingers are on the attacking role, the gap between the wingers and the fullbacks is going to be huge. And it's just going to cause you issues again and again. So then you need to drop them onto support, which then would help a box-to-box get forward because he would fill in that gap. But like you said, you are pressing the opposition and you are transitioning very quickly. Now, you said you have overlap on. Now, how does overlap work? Like, are they even getting forward quick enough if you are trying to if you're getting the ball forward as quickly as you can? How many times are you in the box and your fullbacks are not actually there yet? Then you lose the ball and your fullbacks are kind of in no man's land at that point.
Yeah, so the overlap instruction that I'm using is really more about a mentality push to push their mentality into attacking. It's an interesting question because I haven't looked at it enough, and I may need to do some experiments. To your point, is I'm getting a very aggressive mentality out of them. I mean, they're basically the fullbacks basically live in an attacking mentality, so they're very, very progressively looking to push the ball forward, looking to take risk, and I really use that instruction to up the risk level that they're looking to take. But the side effect of it, and you make a good point, is does it push them to also keep going forward, which may leave us exposed. So I may run some experiments on another secondary sort of shadow save to see if that helps.
Another thing you could maybe look at is if you are playing quite direct football with your two up top, then I always think, okay, if I lose the ball with my pass, who is behind the ball? Who is there to defend? If you are going almost route one to your striker, then your next line of defence is your midfield. So you might as well then just say to your fullbacks, look, just stay back. These guys are going to press. These guys are going to win the ball back. My back four, just stay back. Now, if the gap is too big between defence and midfield, another option, if you are playing without a ball-in midfielder, if you are playing the box-to-box, is to set both of your fullbacks to inverted fullbacks. So when you are attacking, they are supporting, but they are supporting defensive midfield, which then pushes your central midfielders up. They come into that defensive midfield. They say to your central midfielders, we've got this space, you push forward a little bit. So they press with your midfield. If you lose the ball, your fullbacks are still there to just move across and defend as they would as a flat back four. If you lose the ball in the middle, you've got two men there, two players who are very good at defending, who are in that defensive midfield position and maybe win the ball back as well. That's another option which I quite like with the back four, is kind of narrowing the field a little bit and moving them players into the middle when you are attacking, when you have the ball. So you're saying to them, look, I want you to stay back and defend. I don't want you to bomb forward like you were, but I want you further up the field. So just come in front of my two centre-backs and just kind of protect that middle area. But like you said, it's...
Yeah.
Are you in a position to experiment? Maybe not at first, in the first half of a season with a new division, because it could backfire and you could find yourself 5 points adrift, and then at that point you're on the next podcast telling us what we did wrong.
That's why I always keep a shadow save that I use just to mess around tactically, just to run experiments and do some thought experiments to inform my decision making. No, it's an interesting point, I guess, because the tactic as the system that I'm using does like to compress more centrally. With the fullbacks really are a place where that's really where the width is generally coming from. But to your point, if you flip it and leave the width with the wide midfielders and potentially centralize back, do you end up with more defensive stability out of the gate?
I think it as well. It also goes down to how many goals you're conceding, how many goals you're scoring. Like, if it's working, which you've won promotion, like, let's not tinker too much with it. I mean, Ryan, in terms of you being using a 3 at the back, what difference have you seen from that compared to the standard 4-4-2, for example? Like, how are your games going? I know obviously the quality of your players might determine that a little bit more than Colin's true role, but how is it going?
I think it does depend on, obviously, the player roles that you select. So I have been using a wide centre-back on the right-hand side, so that person will obviously then push wider, and then in the defensive midfield position, depending on the opposition that I'm playing, I'll either play like an anchor man that will sit in the gap just in case, or if I'm playing against like the likes of the Liverpools and the Man Cities and teams that I know that are going to press high, and Haaland's going to sit up front for Man City, Liverpool are going to try and make runs as much as possible, I'll change the anchorman to the halfback that will drop even further to go in the defence. So then you are then creating a back four itself from the back three. Against teams that I know I can attack a little bit more, I'll play 2 wide centre backs, and then the central of the back three will either be a standard central defender or a ball playing defender that will play out to those wide centre backs, and then in front I'll have a regista and a ball winning midfielder to get it out to the wingers or the 2 attacking mids that I have in. But obviously, as you said, the quality that I will have, I mean, I say quality, I am currently using Louis Jackson as the backup centre back, because my main centre back is Lenny Yoro, De Ligt, and Martinez. I don't really have anything beyond that apart from my youth team players that are coming through that for centre backs aren't great.
I know I've been in my Bo Vista save, I have a 3 at the back tactic I've been using, but I don't play someone in defensive midfield. I play 2 central midfielders as ball win midfielders, both on support, to try to press up the field a little bit more. and I've been using my middle of the three centre-backs as a stopper. So he's always in that gap. He basically is a defensive midfielder, and you see during game action that I'm basically playing a back two with like you have that anchor or whatever in front. That's the role he kind of takes up when we have the ball. The only difference I've been making is when we play the bigger team, my two other central defenders are as just central defenders. When we have a better team, I play them as wide central defenders, because I do find even on defend, they just get that little bit further forward as a wide centre-back compared to a centre-back. But apart from that, I've been enjoying this stopper role. I feel like they get on the ball a lot more, and I've actually been using mainly defensive midfielders as our third centre-back, and just because of their ability with the first touch, the passing, the vision, etc. Colin, one final thing I wanted to go to you about is fullbacks. Have you looked at defensive midfielders much to retrain in that position? I know when I was during my Egerson journey, quite a lot of my fullbacks through that whole journey started as defensive midfielders, which does make me think even more that there's an issue with fullbacks in the game.
I actually haven't thought about defensive midfielders. I was actually thinking a bit about wide center backs as being a potential option just for the defensive stability side of things. Yeah, that doesn't give me a lot of confidence. But no, I haven't looked at. Oh, and to answer one of your earlier questions, right now we're playing very much like '90s Newcastle. Like I'm going to just score more than you, and that's how we win. So we have a bit of a goal leaking problem, but we counter it with a significant goal scoring proficiency.
Well, let me say this just for you.
I had some things to think of.
Just for you, Colin, I'm going to say I will love it if you beat all of them. I will love it. bit of Kevin Keegan for people there, as he shouted at Sir Alex.